Here is how to think critically when writing, because critical thinking skills are sometimes described as higher order skills. That is, skills requiring ways of thinking that are deeper and more complex than the kind of everyday thinking that we used to say. Say cook a meal or decide what clothes to wear. It doesn't need that deep thinking. If you want to cooking a meal or deciding what clothes to wear does not need that deeper thinking. So a framework that describes different level of thinking can be helpful to start to understand the concept of critical thinking. Critical thinking, to think critically. Bloom's taxonomy classification of education objectives is one of the best known of these. How to think critically. If you look at this taxonomy, Bloom's taxonomy, it helps you to think critically. Look at this here. To create, you need to produce new original work. Design, assemble, construct, develop, formulate, also investigate. When you start doing something, this is the production of the original work. And then justify a stand or decision. Then you think about how you can do this. Then draw connection among ideas. You think of the ideas, different ideas, organize, relate, compare, contrast, distinguish, examine, experiment, question, and so on. So this is how you draw connection among the ideas and then use information in new situation. Execute, implement, solve, use, demonstrate, interpret, operate, schedule, and sketch. And then explain ideas or concepts, recall facts and basic concepts. So this is how to classify these things in order to develop your critical thinking. And then you need to apply. In order to apply, you need to use information in new situation. To understand, you need to explain ideas or concepts. To remember, you need to explain, to recall facts and basic concepts. You need to recall them. So you need to create, when you write, you need to create, new ideas about the topic that you want to write about. You need to evaluate, you need to think about how you compare, you need to think about how you define something, you judge it, to select, to support ideas, to support, are there to value, to critique, to weigh things, to appraise, all these to evaluate. This would help you to topic. These are the ideas that you need in order to develop what you created. And then you need to analyze. Sometimes you need to do some sort of analysis so that you can draw connection among the ideas about a certain topic. You need to organize the ideas, to compare, to contrast, to distinguish, to examine, and so on. And then you need to apply what all these things are. Theoretically think of them before you start writing, and then you need to apply when you write. This is just want to see how Bloom's taxonomy can be applicable in writing skills. Because all these are theoretically, you think of all these ideas, you collect them, write down, you brainstorm them, you collect everything about the topic, then you need to apply it. And then you make sure that you understand the topic, and then you remember whatever. You recall ideas while writing. You need to recall ideas, what you define, your memories, you repeat, you state, and so on. So generally this will help you to organize your ideas and ideas that you brainstorm or you collect it. But here is a selection of phrases that may help in this demonstrating your ability to write critically in your academic work. Previous studies in this area have not dealt with. You need to argue ideas. These are some phrases or expressions that might help you to do so. These results were based upon data from over 30 years ago and therefore may not accurately reflect the current situation. The author offers no explanation for the distinction between X and Y. The study would have been more interesting if it had included this and that. A more comprehensive study would include all of the groups of whatever. A better study would examine a large randomly selected sample of societies with The most important of these criticisms is that someone failed to note that Here, these are some expressions and phrases, not for expression that you might use in order to argue different ideas. Many analysts now argue that this strategy has not been successful Jones, for example, in 2003, argues that Jones in 2003 has also questioned why a recently published article by Smith et al. And others, this et al. Means and others, and with not only Smith, there are some other people with him, 2011, cast doubt on Jones' assumption that, and then. So these are some ideas that you argue when you consult one of the references, when you read, when you consult the reference which you think might add or gives you some more information about a topic that you are writing about. This is how you can integrate or argue the subject, the ideas you read and the ideas you have about the topic. So you need to integrate them together by doing some sort of argument. So these expressions help you to do that kind of argument. Referencing. Referencing is a standard method of acknowledging the source of information you have consulted. When preparing your written assessment work, referencing is necessary to ensure that. Why do we need to reference? All your arguments are clearly supported by evidence. You follow academic standards or conventions. Research that you have read and or undertaken is convincing. The reader can find the sources that you use. The assessor can see how widely that you have read. You showcase a good knowledge of the subject matter. This is why we show references. We need to referencing. Avoiding plagiarism, which is a crime right now. The assessment work that you submitted is credible. So this is why you need to reference, because you are reading someone else's work which is relevant to yours, so that you want to reference to his work, his contribution, and then you need to argue it, to integrate it, to compare it with yours, and so on. So this is how you reference. You refer to someone else who is like sharing the same academic or whatever platform within your topic that you're writing. So this is referencing. Why we reference? We know the reason of why we reference.